When you're starting out and you need investment, to a certain degree, bend over backwards to get it. XP Property have raised £14 million in equity, doing circa £35 million worth of property over the next 18 months. For us, it's about adding value. If it makes profit, we'll do it. We're spreadsheet developers. We don't need that sexy looking project that's going to be, big hero shot on your website. Yes, they're nice to have, but if the numbers don't stack up, then we don't want to do it. Deal clinics for developers and investors that want to learn are the most value you can get. We had a lot of stuff going through the planning process. I was banging my head against a brick wall constantly. It's broken, I hate it. People don't see things the way that I do, and that is the value that we add. My architectural background is great, but my structural engineering background is also equally as important. I know how to push them, where they're being lazy to a certain degree and where things are overspecified and how we can do things slightly differently to make it cheaper. It's got to the point now where a lot of planning officers are not even allowing changes to drawings. And I just think it doesn't surprise me, but it's completely the wrong way of thinking about it. You've got to do all the work. It makes no sense. It's not logical to me, and it frustrates the hell out of me. It is the thing that makes me think, why do I bother?
Before we get into the episode, I just wanted to take a moment to thank everyone for their support. We have had an influx of new subscribers, which we are really, really grateful for as they help us grow the channel. So please continue to like, share, comment, and definitely subscribe so we can get more guests to share their fascinating insights into the world of property, investment, development, and finance. Now, back to the episode. Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of Property People. Today I am delighted to be joined by Mr. Ben Richards. How are you today, Ben?
Hello, very well. Good to be here.
Good. It's great to have you. And today is a very special episode for the simple reason this particular episode is the first time in 5 years that we've had the same person to come back.
Amazing.
So we're actually doing something well that you've actually wanted to come back and join us. The last time we did this, though, it was online. It was during COVID. And certainly the conversation was more with how you started, your professional background as a poker player. So if anybody wants to find out more about those sorts of things, check out that episode because we can go into more detail about that.
I was looking, it was episode 32.
Was it?
Yeah, I was just checking back now. Yeah.
I'm very happy because I didn't have that written down that you've mentioned that. So yeah, check out episode 32. It's a good episode and it'll give you a little bit more context about this one as well. But certainly the fact, and actually at the end of most of those episodes, I used to always have a great chat with pretty much everyone that I've done this with. And I always at the end automatically say, let's do it again sometime. And it never really happened.
Well, privileged to be here again.
And this is it. This is where it's all come back full circle. And there's a number of reasons why you've become the person that I've wanted to catch up with sooner rather than later. We've done some stuff together, but so much has happened since that, and it wasn't that long ago either. You operate at an incredibly high level, incredibly prolific, and I think it's exceptional. So it's good to share these milestones and different stages along the way.
It's been amazing to see your progression over the last couple of years in the industry and the profile that you've raised and these podcasts, and lovely to see what you're doing with Merry Oaks, and also really good to take some of those broker fees back on the poker table at some point. So.
Very good. Yeah. I appreciate you saying that. And I look forward to giving you all that money back. You've already done it once, so I try not to get too used to that. But just as a quick bit of context, Ben, you're a multiple business owner, including an award-winning architecture practice, Aura Architecture and Interiors, an award-winning property developer at XP Property. You've got a measured building and topographical survey company called XP Surveys. You're a social housing investor and developer. And
I don't sleep.
Yes, renowned for not having any time to sleep. And I wanted to go into more details about all these things, because some of these things I think are a little bit newer based on since when we did that last episode. But I've tried to think about where would we start, because it's the first time I'm having a guest back, and normally we always talk about what you did at school, and we can check out episode 32 for that. So I want to talk about Aura Architecture.
Sure.
Because I think that was the first company that you'd set up in this plethora of kind of organizations that you're involved in, and how you've seen that grow. What has been the biggest challenge for growth in that business? Because I saw a recent post that said you turned over 7 figures, and that was a big milestone. And for anybody that is trying to do a business, that's kind of thing that's a huge milestone for them to achieve. So, what were the challenges to get you to that, and how did it feel when you finally got there?
Yeah, and it's always been time really, because I've been stretched with all the other things that I've been working on. So actually, okay, the problem was, how do I free up my time? And that meant bringing in management, really. The game changer was really being able to bring in someone like Graham, who's my sort of design and operations director, to take on the day-to-day operations of the business. So my function in that business now is marketing, HR, finance, like strategic growth and vision of the business. So I'd say kind of, the challenges for me were, how do I sort of free up my time to do what I want to do with the property development stuff, but keep that business growing and growing sort of as fast as it did. And in all fairness, sort of, I think the first 4 or 5 years, it was sort of 100% growth every year. COVID hit and it kind of stagnated a little bit, but now we're picking up the pace at like 15, 20% growth every year. So yeah, that's probably, the challenge has been my time. But challenges in the market, I'd say, have been just improving the efficiencies within the team, like having a team of 12 now, with sort of various sort of external freelancers that we use as well. But driving efficiency and making sure that, one, the business is coming in at the top end, and then actually we're delivering it as efficiently as we possibly can, because fundamentally that drops down to the bottom line profit. And that's really, for service-based businesses like architecture, they're not high margin, or they can be if done really well, but typically you might be looking at something like 8 to 15% net margin, which is quite slim. So we're doing everything we can to kind of try and improve that, but it's difficult.
And when you say 100% growth year on year, and I know a couple of people in different sectors have managed to achieve that, and it seems like quite a tall order, but achievable, because a few people I've seen. But then it does seem to get harder. So like, imagine you're at 100, then you go to 200, or 150 to 300, but then 300 to 6 is quite a jump, and then 6 to 1.2 is like, whoa. It
gets really difficult after the first couple of years, because in reality, the numbers are bigger, right? Yeah. So we went, I think, 80 to 165 to 325 to 355, then to 728. So sort of the first couple of years were very fast, and now it's definitely slowing down, because just the numbers are much bigger. Unless you're in a fast growth tech business where it's like SaaS, it's sort of you're selling software, for example, that is done, the product is there, and you can supercharge kind of the sales of them and get that revenue up. Service-based businesses like architecture, engineering, surveying, you're just not going to continue to grow at 100% rate. It's not going to happen.
And an architecture practice similar to, let's say, I think a solicitor maybe, whereby you look at a scope and you say, okay, this is going to take us X amount of time, and this is the price that we're going to put on that. Where compared to, let's say, my industry, which is a finance brokerage, where you get really all of your fees upon completion, which may be 3-6 months down the line, or not at all if things don't go smoothly. With that type of pricing strategy, with that type of business, are you finding the most important thing is to kind of drive revenue and drive leads and inquiries and exposure and marketing? Is that kind of like your main focus these days?
Yeah, it is my main focus, and always has been from day one, sort of going back to the time thing. Like when I left the Berkeley Group to start architecture, kind of my ultimate goal was to build systems, processes, sales funnels, marketing, sort of lead generation that worked without me being that person going out and winning the work. So focusing on SEO and my sort of organic growth and building the website. Our website, I think last month, got 30,000 views in a month, which for a small architectural practice of 12 people is very, very powerful. We're not getting that conversion that we want from that amount of leads, which is now something we're looking at. Like, why are we getting all of these leads and not actually converting? And I think there's an element of maybe we've been marketing to the wrong people, i.e. we've gone too broad. And that was kind of how the business was set up, really, in terms of we want to help Joe Public kind of do a house extension that they love. But in reality, to build a successful, profitable business, like, we don't really want to be working at the low end of the market. Like, our minimum sort of contract value of project now is about £250,000 plus. So we're now trying to be a bit more focused, and maybe focusing on PR and getting our sexy, gorgeous projects that we've completed, all those nice professional photos out into Grand Designs magazines, Home and Building, these types of places. And I think I've tried to be too broad and set up a sort of solid foundation of marketing and brand and kind of website, and it's probably bringing in too many of the wrong people. And I've certainly learned that in the last year, I'd say. Like, we've recently brought in a finance specialist, sort of business consultant, and I had a meeting with them this week, and they basically said, you're spending way too much on marketing. And we're not seeing the return on it at the moment. And there's an element of the market was dead at the end of last year, and it's starting to pick up. But we do spend about 10% of our revenue on marketing, and I think the average is about 4 to 6%.
And is that music to your ears? You're thinking, well, bloody hell! It's kind of a bittersweet. It's like, oh wow, we've had that money to spend. We're not getting the conversion. Maybe if we did spend it, we should be able to convert it better, or we can make a saving. Bottom line. Yeah,
mixed reviews. They might say that the average is maybe 4 to 6%, and my benchmark of 10% is maybe too high, but we've been able to grow the business to where we have because we've spent a bit more. Yeah. And in COVID, I know people were like laying people off and pulling back. I did the opposite. I kind of doubled down on the marketing, really pushed it, and that's how I think we've grown through that period. I think we probably are spending slightly too much, and for the size of practice we are, I've got an in-house marketing manager. A lot of architectural practices my size doesn't necessarily have that, so that's quite a big overhead. But we're doing things slightly different. We're building our YouTube channel like you are. We're doing a lot of sort of site tours and finished video tours of our projects, and even sort of mid-construction type ones. And for me, I'm building this longer term. A lot of the stuff I've been doing has been kind of evergreen stuff that will be there forever and will continue to work for us, rather than just focusing on PR that will go into a magazine once and then kind of be forgotten about in 3 months' time. And we don't do much PPC advertising, whereby it's kind of actively, you spend £1, you get £4 back. We don't do much of that. It's always been search engine optimization, building the website, social media, sort of organic stuff. And most of our traffic still on our website is organic.
Very, very interesting.
Bit technical, yeah.
No, it's very interesting because what happens is I start to process in my brain. I think, what are we doing in our business? It's very
every business is different, right? And but
there's all this kind of similarities, and from a kind of like, you got finance, you got marketing, you got sales, you got conversion rates, and all that sort of stuff. And within all of that, within Aura Architecture in particular, are you doing the things that you like most in that business now as a business owner? Have you because a lot of people say, like, you shouldn't, if you like drawing the drawing, that's what you should be doing. You should get somebody else to do that. Or if you like doing the marketing, you should be doing that. Have you managed to get to that point in that business right now where you feel like you're doing the things that you enjoy the most?
Yeah, if I just had Aura Architecture in my life, I'd be pretty happy, I would say, without all of the development stuff that's kind of the stress and the risk and the most of my time. If I was just managing director of Aura Architecture, I'd lead a very comfortable life that I really enjoyed. Not to say I don't enjoy what I'm doing now, but kind of I'm stretched so far and so thin that it can be very stressful. Whereas I realistically do at max a day a week in Aura, and that's my kind of role, and that does enough. And a lot of that day is actually on XP projects, like liaising. And I'm wearing two hats in that conversation. And my Aura team get annoyed with me because we sat down last week. They were trying to get more money out of me as a developer. And I was like, which one do I push forward here? And I basically said no. So the development needs to come first on this occasion. Aura need to stick to their fees, and that's it. And I know I can make that decision because it's my business. But it can be difficult to manage the both.
But and I think that's one of the beauties of having different businesses in the same kind of verticals, whereby you can have complementary skills that kind of, and that's probably the thinking of. Was that the thinking of why you set up Aura Architecture in the first instance?
So Aura Architecture came out of when I graduated from uni. I worked for a small architectural practice and a structural engineering practice. Led by two structural engineers. I was their first employee. I actually went to meet them at the Grand Design Show. They were exhibiting. I was like, look, I've seen your website. I really like it. I want to work for you. Started working for them, worked for them for 4 years. And I got very frustrated in that business because they weren't doing the things that I thought they should be doing. They weren't out marketing. They weren't out networking. Right. It was just same old, weren't growing as a business. And it was very frustrating for me. And I almost kind of, there was a bit of ego behind Aura in that I wanted to prove that I could do it to myself and build the business and grow to sort of where we are and not just sit with 2-3 people in the office being completely stagnant, doing the same old stuff every day. And so there was a bit of that, but also with service-based businesses like Aura, it was about cash flow. So I need to build kind of a fast pound earning business that is a cash flowing thing, because I know if I want to jump into developments, it's very lumpy cash, very lumpy cash. And I know a lot of people over the last 2 or 3 years that have jumped ship from corporate life, tried to be a developer, and after 2 or 3 years gone back to corporate life, maybe doing 3 days a week instead of 5, but they realize without that income coming in and that cash, development is very tough because it's very cash intensive. So yeah, Aura started a bit out of ego and a bit out of I need a cash flowing business, and this is what I know. So this is my background. So,
all very good reasons, and you've done a great job in doing that. So, and that complementary kind of skill set where you've got those expertise in house. What is the split right now of end users? And when you said minimum project, 250,000, you're talking about construction cost?
So a house extension, maybe a ground floor extension and a loft conversion, you know, that type of thing. Like the sort of thing where clients are going to move out for 9 months, they come back, they got a brand spanking new lovely house that's, you know, bigger and better, and that's the sort of minimum ticket order. Yeah.
And what, you know, because obviously you are a property developer, and I, from memory, one of the taglines for Aura is, you know, architecture
for developers, by developers.
And in terms of the split, because I know you do work with a lot of developers. I know a bunch of them.
Yep.
Is it homeowners or is it developers? Has there been a conscious split?
Yeah, so at the moment it's about a 70-30 between private resi clients as the 70% and then 30% as the developer clients, and most of that 30% is XP. So we haven't done a huge amount of property development clients, worked with property developer clients externally for a while. We've done the odd thing, but this year 2024 we're a big push for working with more property developer clients like XP Property, mainly because it's larger work. It's I think, you know, that's where we add a shit ton of value because of kind of my background and the team that I've now got. So I've brought in somebody that's been running his own business for 20 years, wanted to get back more in the nitty gritty and on the tools rather than being lumbered with the admin and the invoicing and the business winning work and stuff like that. So I brought Jamie in to kind of run a lot of that property development side of the business, and he's super experienced with that. So we're now this year trying to push for more property developer clients whereby the split becomes 60-40, that type of split.
It makes sense. I think it's good to have a diversified customer base slightly, because if one thing falls, then the other one kind of comes up, and then it kind of balances the two out to a certain extent. And especially with your background being a developer, I think you can provide insight where other architects can't do that. Do you have a preference of whether you like working with developers or homeowners? Because here's the reason why. I know some contractors, for example, they don't like developers because they're trying to squeeze them on every little thing, and they don't move this.
There's more margin in the family homeowner stuff for construction companies, definitely.
This episode is brought to you by our sponsors, XP Surveys. XP Surveys are the brainchild of Jack Jiggins and Ben Richards of XP Property, and they've been on Property People, so go check out their episode. Architects and property developers start their client journeys on the foundation of having the right data to make decisions. Understanding the building or the land you're working with, it is paramount to get started. So, XP Surveys offers fully referenced, accurate and timely surveys which enables enhanced and faster decision making, improving your productivity when looking at buildings. XP Surveys not only knows how to conduct the right measured building and or topographical surveys to meet your technical requirements, they know how to deliver them the best to support your wider relationships. So go check them out, links in the show notes. Now back to the episode.
But my preference is the development stuff. Yeah, I'm extremely good at optimizing schemes and seeing value that others don't, and I really get a kick out of that. I don't necessarily get a kick out of the sort of conversations with homeowners, and you know, we are very good at creating homes that people want to live in, they thrive in. We deliver schemes that are catered around how they want to live their lives, but I leave that to the team. There's a lot of amazing architects within the team that love that one-on-one interaction. Get a sense of they just love creating homes for these people that they're going to live in for 10, 15, 20 years, and they know that they've put their stamp on that. For me, I'm very practically minded, very technically kind of gifted, engineering background. I like solving problems. I like efficiency, hence rearranging layouts, figuring out how to get the most value out of property development is just
on a commercial basis.
The commercial side of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that the working with the end user, like the grand design, and this is the thing I've spoken to other architects and they say the same thing, is that some people are good at certain things and some people are good at others, and they just enjoy. It's all right. It's just what's your preference, really. Some people do really good dense schemes in the cities. Some do really good, nice rural homes and stuff. And you just got to find the right person that can design those things.
Yeah.
So, XP surveys.
Mm-hmm.
That's new to the family, I think.
Yeah, 3 years young. Yeah, 3 years young. And ultimately, with XP surveys, what I wanted to do is get XP surveys to where Aura was in 5 years within 3 years. So kind of learn the things I'd learned in Aura in terms of lead generation, building a business, building right teams, and get XP surveys to that stage faster, basically. Hasn't really turned out that way. And again, it just comes back to time. I'm just, both Jack and I are spread so thin with our development stuff. I've said this a lot over the last couple of weeks. If we give XP surveys 4 hours of our time between us in a week, that's probably a lot. And that's just not enough to grow the business that we want to build. And it's kind of, it's there, it's got a team, it's got, good branding. We're sort of constantly pushing the marketing and building our database of architects and other people. But there's so much more that needs to be done. And there's not enough time in the day for us to do it. And that means bringing in a business development manager now, somebody that can potentially sort of do all that legwork that we might have done previously. And we just haven't built the team enough. And that's been cash flow, that's been time, it's been investment. And it's got a load of potential, and I would love to explore more of that potential. But XP Property is just taking way too much time.
With launching XP surveys, what was the thinking? Like, so you mentioned that the fact that it was going to grow like a service business, like Aura Architecture. Was there any element of kind of, again, it's a complementary business that kind of fits into our development stuff for XP Property?
Yeah, massively. So as part of that kind of ecosystem of businesses that we've got, it was right at the front end of it. And because I know how it operates and it works with Aura, I was getting frustrated with the level of service and kind of speed in which our surveys were being delivered externally. So I'd always had it in the back of my mind. I think this whole sector can be done so much better than what it is. So why don't we do it? And I'd had it on the back burner. It was called Aura Surveys. It was measured. It was it had all sorts of names until I said to Jack, look, I don't have the time to do this. Do you want to just do it together and start building it? 3 years ago together. So that's where it happened. That's where it started. It started as I know this can be done better. Let's see what we can do with it. Again, having a cash flowing service-based business was also of interest to Jack, and having something that has scalability, which Aura doesn't really. It's very with Aura, and you touched a little bit on it earlier, but with any creative process, there's an element of how long is this going to take? Yeah. And when you're giving fixed fees from an architectural perspective, and the client changes their mind, and you have, instead of doing 3 iterations, you do 6, and it's back and forth, it's difficult to scale that. And it's difficult to find people that are willing to pay on an hourly rate. They're just not. They want a fixed fee. They want some assurances. Whereas XP Surveys is very much, you go out, you do your job, you output it, it goes on. There's no ifs, buts, or maybes. Yeah, this is the CAD survey. This is the existing building footprint and the elevations. That's it. There's no client that says, oh, actually, why don't you try and do it this way, or do it this way, or I wasn't quite sure about that. So with XP Surveys, it's very definitive. It's you survey it, you process it, you scan it, it goes out the door. So it can be very much a conveyor belt. What we've tried to do is bring in some tech at the front end of that. So We're the only company in the UK that has an online quoting tool for measured surveys.
Right.
So we use property data. So we pull in information from Ordnance Survey, from EPCs, about house sizes, how many rooms, how big the garden is, all this sort of stuff. We have our own pricing algorithm based on history and what we feel like we can deliver schemes for. We piece that together with sort of API integrations, and ultimately on a website, type in your postcode, select the services that you want. Within 2 minutes, you're getting a quote for your measured building and topo survey. And nobody else is doing that. And this is where we were trying to bring a very antiquated industry kind of into the 21st century. Now, the kit that we use within these businesses is like top of the range. You've got £42,000 laser scanner that we use on all of our sites. And it's growing and improving at like a rapid rate. iPhones now have LiDAR scanning and things like that, which is mad. But that side of the equipment is growing massively, but it's still being, from a business perspective, being brought through at a very snail's pace.
A process at a snail's pace.
Yeah, I know from getting surveys quoted as a property developer. I might ring someone up, give them all my information. They go and speak to a surveyor who speaks to someone else. 48 hours later, I get an email to say, here's your quote, see attached. 48 hours is too slow. Like for us, 2 minutes. 2 minutes, you've got yourself a quote. Sometimes it doesn't have all the data online and we have to do it manually, but our plan B is everyone else's plan A. So the idea for us is that we become kind of the fastest surveying practice in the UK.
That does sound like it's got loads of potential.
Yeah, well, for scale, exactly as well. Yeah, it's just, again, time. Yeah.
It's all about, good ideas are one thing, but then it's the execution
Exactly
behind it. But now at least you've got the foundation there, and you've got some traction, and it's helping you with XP property.
Yeah, and Aura, yeah.
And
we actually, so last week, we were instructed on a new project, which is a 27-bed HMO in South London. For Aura, this is. It turns out XP Surveys did the survey on that. So the client said, look, I've got this survey, here it is. And I was like, oh, it's XP Surveys on it. So it's it's a small world, things come around.
Ecosystem.
Yeah, and it's the ecosystem, doing its thing.
It. XP Property. Mm-hmm. And actually, we should have mentioned because Jack is part of XP Surveys and XP Property.
Yep.
And so it's kind of like almost the first time we're doing a sequel to a film. It's like, well, you don't need to watch the first one to know about what happened in the second one. You can watch it standalone. But tell us a little bit about Jack, who's part of XP Survey and XP Property, just for anybody that's watching this as a standalone.
So I was looking back at your back catalogue. He's episode 23. So you interviewed him back then as well. So there's a bit of background there. But yeah, Jack comes from sort of a line of property developers and construction people. So his dad's a property developer, bricklayer turned property developer, has also ran and sold sort of multiple businesses, like Portaloo businesses, shipping container type businesses, and made really good money out of that. His grandfather on his mum's side, I think, is a construction, has been running a construction company for a long, long time. So he's grown up on the tools. He always jokes about when he was 4 years old, his mum found him up on a scaffold with a fag butt in his mouth, and it's sort of.
I've seen some photos as well. I think you showed me in a presentation.
Yeah, I think every house that he's ever lived in has been built by his dad, and he's lived in caravans on site and stuff like that. But his background is actually business and marketing. He studied at uni doing that, and then he went to work for some property fit out companies as a project manager. He's been on the tools. He's built houses with his own hands, but he felt like there was better ways of doing it, using his head more so than his hands, and it's bloody cold in the winter when you're out on a roof. He sort of left corporate life similar time to me, sort of 7 years ago. We met at a property education kind of event. It was a 12-month kind of VIP program. We had the same mentor. Mentor got to know us after a couple of months and said, look, I've mentored both of you in separate occasions. I think you two should have a chat. I think you get on really well together. So kind of it snowballed from there. We met for a coffee, and here we are sort of 7 years later. We've built tens of millions of pounds worth of property. We've started numerous businesses, and it's a good partnership. His part of the business within XP Property is land and acquisitions. My skill set is design and delivery, so there's a very sort of distinguished separation of what we do within the business.
Relationship, absolutely.
Yeah, and he's very sales driven. I'm very technical in my kind of background and approach, and so far it's worked well.
It has worked well. And interestingly, you said that yours episode was 32 and his was 23. So like the 2 and the 3 and the 3 and the 2.
Yeah, that's how I remembered it.
Yin and yang going around there. So So now that we know a little bit about Jack and how you guys work together on XP Surveys and XP Property, we were talking about making, in first 7 figures in Aura architecture. Throughout your business operations, now you've gone from 7 to 8 figure, deals and size of kind of volume of business.
Yep.
Tell us about XP Property and
The whirlwind.
And what's where are you at with it now? Where have you come from the last time we caught up?
Sure. So, we've probably come on leaps and bounds, to be honest, and we've made some adjustments in the last 2 years in our business, whereby we were doing projects that were not turning the needle for us as a business. They weren't big enough. If we're doing a 2-bedroom new build house on the side of an existing 3-bed terrace, and we're turning 60 grand, and it's taking us 2 years to do that, that's like 2 months overheads now. It doesn't cut the mustard. We've now set a baseline of every project needs to generate at least £400,000 net profit per year. So we want 200 grand per year per project coming into our business, and we know that that's our minimum threshold now. So our project size is somewhere between 3 and 10 million pound GDV exit. Purchase price is somewhere between 1 and 5 million. We've got 65 units in delivery this year, which is the most that we've ever done. But we've also been building a social housing portfolio alongside that over the last 3 years. So we've built a circa 20 million pound portfolio of 114 beds in South London, leased to a registered social landlord, and that's no mean feat as well. So we're super proud of kind of where that's been and come from. It's not been easy. That it was a completely new learning curve how that market works, and it's based on yields really. So the yield market's moved in the last couple of years, not in a good way for us. It's sort of reduced the value of our portfolio and caused a few issues, and we've had to move registered social landlords, which is again kind of a whole legal process that we had to really force. So that's been quite difficult. So it's been a real whirlwind for it's our 6th birthday this year. There's a team of 7 of us. We're doing circa 35 million pounds worth of property over the next 18 months. And that's split over the best part of 7 or 8 projects. And that's probably a bit of a stretch for us, albeit Jack will say we want to go for 50 million. But
just for round numbers.
Round it up from 35 to 50. Yeah, it's easy, yeah.
The thing is, when you're doing that level of stuff and you've got the architecture kind of practice in the background, some might say, why are you delivering the units as well? Why don't you just go for planning stuff? You've obviously got the surveys and you've got the architecture. Just you're good at securing planning on sites. Mm-hmm. Why don't you just flip them and then you don't have to worry about construction? Construction's got the most risk in it.
Most risk, yeah. Market risk.
Have you? Because what would be your answer to that?
We do trade things on. Yeah,
okay.
we have done historically. We will do going forward. I think that the schemes that we're delivering at the moment, we were comfortable doing so, and they made sense for us, both for us as a business and our investment partners. And Jack's role in 2024 is to find opportunities that we do flip on and build our pipeline for 2025. So we're now thinking 1-2 years ahead in terms of pipelining for delivery in those years. Our year over the next 2024 and into 2025 is very much over to me. Deliver these 65 plus units, generate decent margins on these, and I've told Jack not to put any more in the pipeline. It's kind of we can't deliver any more. It's a case of the sites that we find now we trade on. We either get planning permission or we exchange and novate the contract to somebody else. And we've just we've agreed something exactly like that down in Surrey. Whereby we're buying at a very good level and we've negotiated a very good price for it, and we could turn 200 grand by just backing it onto someone else. So it's in our wheelhouse. We have done it in the past. We will do it in the past. Trading on assets is very much about where our business is at the time, what the market's doing, what the situation is with this particular project, and also our investment partners. It's kind of we have to take into account and factor in kind of what their needs and wants are as well, and how quickly they want to come out of projects. And there's a lot of moving parts, a lot of variables, but that's part of the fun.
Absolutely. It's interesting because when you've got that level of stuff going on, and I assume that, yeah, Jack's kind of originating these opportunities. And I always think about football for some reason. It's like because I think I'm completely left-footed myself. I could only score a goal with my left foot. Forget about heading anything. Forget about right foot, which makes you a one-trick pony. But when you're skilled as you and Jack are, you look at an opportunity and say, well, actually, we could do it like this, or we could do it like that as well, and we could still monetize that opportunity without having to be. Like for a contractor, for example, if that's your specialty, you've got to make sure you build out everything because you're not going to take anything through planning. It's a headache. But you guys understand the planning process, and you're comfortable and confident in delivering a scheme. You're able to switch around which one you do depending on where you are within your business and the resources you got available to you.
Yeah, I think we're very well-rounded as a developer. We've always kind of been a developer at the truest sense of what I think it is. We do see a lot of people come off of kind of educational platforms and they're purely focused on, I do commercial conversions, I do lease options. Okay, for us, they're tools in our arsenal. Yeah. They're not, we do this one strategy or this strategy. We've done all of them, to be honest. We've had one site where we had everything, and that's just because we know what they are and we can utilize them when we need to. And that's what we're all about. For us, it's about adding value. If we can see an angle and we can add value in various ways, we will do it. And if it makes profit, we'll do it. And I think Jack's always been very keen to say we're spreadsheet developers. We don't need that sexy looking project that's going to be big hero shot on your website. Yes, they're nice to have, but if the numbers don't stack up, then we don't want to do it. For us, we've got to give a return to our investment partners, and fundamentally, it's about risk mitigation. We want to do projects that we've de-risked at the start. We've bought really well. I've used my skill set to enhance the layouts to get the planning approval that creates best value. I use my understanding of construction, and we've just, 2 schemes that we've just had came in they came in sort of 300 grand over budget, more than that, 300, 600 grand over budget, and through the best part of 2 weeks, I was able to knock £300,000 off of those tenders and agree a price that's now in line with where we want it to be, and that's understanding both the architectural side of stuff, where I'm literally going in and saying, okay, we don't need 2 layers of plasterboard here. We could do this differently. Let's put the fire line here and put the, and that sort of understanding is really where I add value. For 2 weeks' work, I've saved 700 grand for the business. And when you look at that on an hourly rate basis, yes, it's not making money, but it's, saving money is equally as important. So
penny saved is a penny earned, for sure.
Exactly that.
And I think it's one of the big reasons why I never really got into. I'm just looking over your shoulder over there. There's a big property development going on in that corner. The reason why I didn't go down that route is because I didn't have that skill set in my arsenal, where like what you said about two plasterboards on this wall. If somebody said you needed 3, Sam, I'd be like, okay, if we need 3. And of course you can spend the time to go out and learn that stuff, but it takes time, and you've got to have a massive interest in it. And I can tell that you do, whereas I don't necessarily care about how many. I just do what is necessary.
What's on the drawings?
What's on the drawings and what somebody's told me we need for building regulations.
I do take it for granted sometimes, because I just assume people know and see what I see. And actually, I've learned that I should pat myself on the back for the experience and the knowledge base that I've got. And people don't see things the way that I do, and that is the value that we add. And my architectural background is great, but my structural engineering background is also equally as important. I can sit down on a call with, and I did sit down on a Colney Hatch Lane. I saved 25 grand on the structural design with a 1-hour conversation with the structural engineer. I know how to push them. I know where they're being lazy to a certain degree, and where things are over specified, and how we can do things slightly differently to make it cheaper. So it's not everyone does have that skill set and background, and it's something that, as an XP property, we're very good at squeezing value out of things that way.
Incredibly valuable. We just had Mike Bristow on from Crowd Property, and he was quoting Elon Musk, another decent businessman, talking about the value is directly correlated with the complexity of the problem that you're solving. Mm-hmm. And of course, these are incredibly complex problems, and that's why as a property development, you can work on deal sizes in the 7 and 8 figure kind of territory and beyond. Talking about problem solving, planning.
Pain in the arse, lots of P's,
I mean, for all the skills in the world and all the knowledge, every single developer that I speak to, every single person I speak to, whether you're in finance or a solicitor, etc., there's two major things that I think I come across when I'm trying to get loans through. One is the land registry, but it's nowhere near as complicated as what the planning is. But these two kind of administrative processes, how do you approach them? How do you overcome them? Does it ever make you want to give up?
It's broken. I hate it. Honestly, 2023 was super stressful for me because we had a lot of stuff going through the planning process. And I was banging my head against a brick wall constantly for stupid things that could just be resolved on the end of a phone call. And that is the thing that frustrates me the most, where you spend weeks going back and forth on an email when literally a 5-minute conversation with the planning officer where he says, I don't like this, change it to this. I say, sure, no problem. I'll do the drawings tomorrow, get it back over to you, would solve everything. And they just don't do it. It's got to the point now where a lot of planning officers are not even allowing changes to drawings. And I just think it doesn't surprise me, but it's completely the wrong way of thinking about it. Like, you should be working with people to get the planning approval through first time round and stop second, third applications where it's adding to your workload even more. Like, why do you want a new, fresh application to come back through where you've got to go and reconsult again? You've got to do all the work. Like, it makes no sense. It's not logical to me, and it frustrates the hell out of me. But it's a broken system. They're under-resourced. There's not enough money. I was hoping that the increase in application fees that have recently come in would be a great solution and would mean that they could hire more people, better people. But I found out afterwards that money isn't ring-fenced to the planning departments. That just goes to government and it's pissed away however they want it to be pissed away. And it's not actually given to the resource and the teams and the planning departments that need it. And it is the thing that makes me think, why do I bother? Why don't we just take a site that's consented and just use our construction skills and just deliver it? And I don't see a change very quickly. You just have to lump it and try and play the game as best as you possibly can.
I mean, Labour is saying that if they get in, they're going to build 1 million houses, I don't know, in the next 5 years.
It's not going to happen.
It's like, is there any way that, but there's no thinking or thought or kind of solution behind how they're going to deliver that. I mean, PD has been helpful, but how far can it go before you kind of completely destroy kind of town planning because you're just changing assets into things that they weren't supposed to be? So I can't see how that's going to work out if they get in, but it is incredibly frustrating. And no matter who I speak to, we were speaking to Paul Higgs, who's been on recently, who's unbelievably experienced in this side of things, and he pretty much agrees with you in that it's kind of broken at the moment, and it just needs fixing. And the people that are employed to fix it don't even know what to start.
Don't know their arse from their elbow.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, it's a very frustrating process. It's the bane of my existence, and I wish that it were more simple. I just wish there was an open dialogue like it used to be. Like, say 10 years ago, like, you could genuinely pick up the phone, you could have a genuine conversation with a planning officer, and you just don't get that anymore. You know, they want you to pay for pre-app advice. It took 10 months to get a response on a one-house sort of backland development in a project in Reading that we did a pre-app on last year, which is outrageous. You know, there's
how many? 10 months.
10 months.
Oh my
it was a 4-bedroom house in like a backland, you know, behind a house at the front of the site, and it's just not going to get fixed anytime soon. So we're just trying to play the game as best as we can, surround ourselves by good architects, good planning consultants, good external consultants that kind of add value to that process, and give up, you know, concede. There's times where I would normally push back and try and argue the case, and I'm now at the point where I'm like, I can't deal with it anymore. Yeah, fine, whatever. We'll give you what you want. We may submit a further application down the line and maybe fight that one. Yeah. But I've got, you know, finance costs on this site. You know, it's costing us thousands of pounds every month. We can't let this can go down the road any further.
And I think that's how you end up dealing with it. It's kind of like, look, I could deliver a much better scheme if we had a better dialogue and a bit of a back and forth, but I can't even afford to have that, so we're just going to go with this lump and be done with it.
Yeah.
And then so everybody kind of loses out.
Yeah.
I don't know, in some way, shape, or form, I feel like I'm starting to get more and more committed. I'd love to get a housing minister on Property People at some point and explain to me, and all the people that, that have been here that are well versed and experienced at what at property investment, development, and finance, so we can try and come to a solution together. So watch this space. That'll be the third time you're back.
I'd love to see it, yeah. Let me on so I can grill them.
Exactly. I think I'll have to bring them in a bodysuit or something, like body armor to make sure that they get protected. Social housing.
Yes.
This is another big thing. You've touched on it before, and some of the challenges that you face because of the fact that you've kind of gone into it as a new business, which is to be expected. Social housing in general is something that occurred to me not too long ago. It's become quite a buzzword in the property space, where there's a lot of money to be made because there's so much money being pumped into it.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, it's kind of like, well, this is actually like why do we need how come we need so much social housing? Is the economy broken? Well, we've just gone through a recession. And then by providing the solution for all of the, let's call them vulnerable people, whichever walk of life they come in, whether they're kind of been incarcerated for some reason, they're coming out rehabilitation, or whether they're refugees, etc. Mm-hmm. When you're approaching that space, how is it different for you as a mindset, doing the kind of private BTR or doing kind of nice fancy homes in North London? So
it's a basic version of a HMO, really, but the finishes internally, we try to make, part of our vibe with the Parosocial is psychologically enhanced environments. So we've been into some social housing stock before, whereby it's stainless steel sinks everywhere. It's very, very clinical, and I can't, it looks like a prison cell. It's somewhere that I couldn't see myself living and thriving in. So we've tried to kind of bring that back to warm tones, nice, timber flooring, kind of Howden's kitchens that are, wood effect cut, and even just doing that minor thing just makes it feel more homely. Yeah. So from an interiors perspective, that's kind of what we've been trying to do. It has to be low maintenance. You want to give your HA something that isn't just going to break all the time, even though the tenants will do as best as they can to pull radiators off the walls, and we actually had somebody dragging the television across the floor outside of the property a couple of weeks ago. We house kind of very vulnerable tenants, sort of low risk mental health, ex sort of drug abuse users, ex domestic violence victims, and people that need a lot of support and a lot of care. And this is the type of thing that happens in our flat. So the way that we do design it differently, is making sure that everything is lower maintenance. It's more robust, I guess, than maybe your fancy stuff that you might put in your luxury homes. But other than that, it's more about the business model, really. We're buying assets and we're turning them into kind of bedsit rooms. We're leasing the properties back to a registered social landlord on a 10 or 25-year lease. Government supported effectively. If that housing provider kind of fails and the regulator steps in, more often than not, it will be kind of transferred over to someone else, and someone new, a new provider will come in to provide the support. But it's a whole new world to us 3 years ago. It's been a ride, been a journey, but it makes you feel good. You're sort of housing 114 beds now, and to know that these people are getting a roof over their head and care provision, it's great.
And that's what I always say. One of the reasons why I love working in the property market is because it's a human need. Mm-hmm. We create spaces for people to work, rest, and play, and that's exactly what you're doing. And from the projects and council estates and stuff that just weren't very well integrated or weren't very well built, and like I said, some of them look like prison cells. There's an opportunity when you're starting today is to create something better than that was existing previously. With the social housing stuff, as you mentioned earlier as well, it's the return or the overall value of what you're doing is very yield driven. And with the recent increase in interest rates, that yield has taken a negative effect of whether you've got a commercial property as well as a similar trend. With LHA rates as well going up, have you? Has that happened yet? Or is that going to happen?
It's happening on the 5th of April, so new tax year. So we're a couple of months away from an instant increase in our property portfolio value, because if the LHA rate increases, which it does, our rental income increases, therefore our value of the portfolio kind of increases as well. So we're looking forward to that day coming, but it's been frozen since we started. Right. It's been frozen for 4 years. So it was due to go up. And to be honest, in our areas, I don't think it's gone up half as much as it should have done, to the point where I think one of our team was calculating, because it's meant to basically follow about the 30th percentile of market rent. And in our areas, it was more like 5 or 6%. So we feel like a little bit hard done
30
by.
30 versus 5 or 6 was in your area?
Yeah.
Wow.
So in Croydon, in the areas that we operate, it's gone up 8.6%, I think. And that's in like a 4-year period. So if you imagine like how inflation has increased over the last couple of years, market rents have gone up 30, 40, some places 50% in that time period, yet ours is going up 8.3%. I mean, in other areas like Bromley, I think we're up 16%, so it's like a little bit closer to where we think it should be. But for some reason, Croydon, the increase wasn't as much.
Do you think it's got anything to do with them going bankrupt?
Potentially, maybe. Yeah, I mean, Croydon have had all sorts of issues over the last couple of years, and it's kind of out of our control. We kind of just have to do what we can do. We thought there'd be a bit more uproar, if I was honest, about the increases that the government did come out with, because they just aren't anywhere near where we think they should be compared to market private rent. Yeah. But it is what it is. That's the decision that's been made. At least our portfolio value increases by that same amount because of the rental increase.
Like each year, the market changes, whether it be government intervention or whether it be market forces itself. And as business owners, you just got to kind of work with the cards that you dealt, which is
exactly that. Yeah.
Right. So the next point I wanted to ask you was about working with investors. Mm-hmm. So the thread through all the development stuff, everybody knows that property development is notoriously a cash-intensive game. For anybody that's starting out, especially SMEs, it's really, really difficult to really scale or to grow at any pace without working with investors. Mm-hmm. And that skill set, and probably something that we've mentioned on the last episode. But now with where you are, how have those relationships with those investors kind of matured, and what is the next wave of investment that you're looking for with your business?
Yeah, good question, and it's probably worth sort of setting the scene. So over the last 6 years, XP Property have raised the best part of £14 million in equity. We've done about 41 million plus in debt amongst the projects that we've done. And that £14 million has come from conversations like this, conversations at networking events, your mate's uncle, like it just sort of potentially high net worth individuals that have businesses and have some money to invest. But it's always been to the tune of somewhere between 100 grand and most recently 1.2 million, and that's the sort of level we've operated at to now, where our average has been about probably 450 in sort of across the board, and that's been brilliant, and it's helped us get to where we are now. But it's been a lot of coffees, a lot of meetings, a lot of Zoom calls. I think Jack did 70 Zoom calls to fill the equity piece for one of our recent schemes. Wow. That's a lot of time, and going back to what we are good at, Jack's very good at finding deals, structuring deals. I'm very good at designing, delivering deals. Finding the equity, finding the investment, if we're spending 40% of our time doing that, we're not really utilizing our skill sets as best as we can. So we've now opened a search, I guess, kind of started the conversations with larger funds, family offices, investment managers, whereby we're trying to bring in a larger pool of investment at group level. So for us, our starting point has been £10 million. So we're sort of actively speaking to people to raise £10 million to go in at sort of XP group level for us to then distribute into whatever we want to do. Now, we've sort of feel like it's diversified to a certain degree. We've got our social housing, and we put some money into the social housing, which is kind of low income, low risk type assets. Yeah. We've got our higher risk property developments, which on average over the last 6 years, we've averaged about 50% IRR on the equity that we've sort of
50%?
used. 50%.
Very good.
Yeah, we've done well with our developments. And then the HMO stuff is somewhere between 10 and 15%, that type of thing. So we've got kind of 3 buckets of areas we want to deploy that capital into, and probably in 18 months' time, we'll probably need another 5 or another 10. But we want somebody with deeper pockets than what we've done to date, which has been, okay, brilliant to have you on board, £500,000 going into this development. We need to wait 18 months for this development to finish to get that 500 grand back to then deploy it into another project. And that's just too slow for us with what we want to do. So we want somebody that has hundreds of millions, that wants to kind of diversify into two, relatively young. Jack's a lot younger than I am, but people with ambitions to grow bigger, a good track record which we've got over the last 6 years, and somebody that wants to grow with us, that wants to invest more as a longer term partnership, 5 years plus type partnership with a larger equity piece that's deployed into the schemes that we're doing. So that's the goal over the next couple of years. Yeah. Which
I wouldn't be surprised if the next time we do chat, all of that's been sorted.
Hopefully. We're having lots of conversations. We're actually heading to MIPIM next week, so we've got some conversations lined up. We had some really good conversations yesterday with some potential investment partners. So yeah, these conversations are starting, and we're learning through that process. It's a different, we're approaching it differently, and it's there's different lingo, there's different sort of things that people want when you're dealing with offices and funds, and it's, they've got capital to deploy. It's very binary. It's, you like it, you don't like it. With the investors that we've worked with today, it's very emotional. It could well be like the money that they've been saving up for many, many years, and it's all they have, and they're investing it into you, and there's a lot of pressure with that. But at the same time, with the fund, it's more, we have 40 million this year to deploy. What are we going to deploy it on? Not a case of shall I, shan't I? It's no, we need to get this money out of the door. And I think that's, I guess, I'd imagine it probably resonates with a lot of your listeners. But when you're starting out and you need investment, you, to a certain degree, bend over backwards to get it. Whereas we're in a position now whereby what people don't realize when they're starting is the investors need and want to deploy that capital as well. It's when you provide a service, it's an exchange both ways.
Absolutely.
And when you're an investor when you're a developer starting out and you need the investment, you need it, you get worse terms, you don't negotiate, you think, I just have to get this over the line because this is what I need. Whereas I think when you're a little bit more experienced, you realize that as the developer, you do hold some of the cards. This is an opportunity for them to get a return on their cash, to work with you, for them to get £100,000, £200,000, over the next 2 years of interest on that cash. And your mentality shifts a little bit when you realise that.
Which I think, it's a sign of maturity. It's like, you've got the stripes, you've been through the wars, and you've come out the other end, and things are looking good. So now you feel a bit more confident being a safe pair of hands.
Yeah.
And like I said, that money needs to find a home and to keep its head above water, keep its head above inflation, so it just doesn't depreciate.
And the amount of times we've spoken to somebody in January and they've got £500,000 to invest, they see a scheme, they're like, oh, actually, I want 12% a year. Well, we can't give you that. I want 12%. I'm going to wait. And then a year's time, we say, oh, did you invest that money? And they say no. So it's been sitting in their bank getting like 3%. And because they didn't want to shift by a couple of percentage points, they've missed out on. They've made nothing.
Probably actually gone down in value if it's
exactly. Yeah. Inflation's just taking it away.
The biggest risk is taking no risk at all.
Very good. Like it.
Very good. The board.
Yes.
This is something that also is interesting with what you do. Mm-hmm. We're going to get to the point of asking, kind of, you're also a family man. Time is precious, but you also help other people, and you start pushing the kind of online social media stuff as well a little bit more.
Yep.
By doing every Friday, people can catch you.
Yeah, every Friday at 5 p.m. we are live on the Property Experts podcast on YouTube. We do take that video and put it into audio format across Spotify and Apple Music and all of those podcast platforms. But it's basically a chance for Jack and I to look at the 7 to 10 things in that week that we feel are, we've learnt the most from, or people will get most value from, or, we've just learnt about capital allowances on office conversion that we're doing, or we've just had a really interesting conversation with our VAT consultant. Okay, all of those learnings, We give back on those Friday lives. We give a couple of updates on some of our projects, some of the things that we've been learning on those. And it's just, yeah, I mean, we enjoy it. It takes us probably, an hour and a half, sort of start to finish, half an hour to kind of prepare the slides. And then we do it for like 45 minutes to an hour, whereby it is a live Q&A, so people do shout in questions as we go, but predominantly we'll have a couple of slides, one slide per topic, and it will just be topics from the week that we think our audience would gain loads of value from, and learnings that we've had that we think are worth sharing.
And then you go one step further and you create this board as well. Tell us about that.
So the boardroom stuff and the consultancy is something that Jack and I really love doing. I think I've always wanted and pushed myself to be part of a mastermind type boardroom group like Candor and the Developer Club, all these things whereby you're surrounded by like-minded people. They're all in the same space. They want to learn. And yeah, as XP, we decided during, well, it was three years ago when we first started it, to get 10 or 12 people together every month for 4 hours where we look at goals, achievements, we do deal clinics, hot seat coaching, so people can bring both property opportunities that we discuss around a table and also business issues that people are facing. And I guarantee, either myself or somebody else in the group has gone through those same issues and can feed back and teach people in the room. And XP hosts that. So it's a case of kind of Jack or I being on the call, hosting the sort of structured process. I feel like deal clinics for developers and investors that want to learn are the most value you can get, because it's a realistic problem that you're solving. You're firefighting ideas, you're looking at all of the constraints, you're using your shared kind of experience and knowledge base within the room, and everyone gets so much from it. So we spend a good hour kind of going through 3 or 4 deals that people are looking at, and sometimes it puts people off the deals because actually it just doesn't work.
Which is good.
Which is good. Or it's, have you thought about doing this? Oh, I haven't actually. That's a great idea. Yeah, I didn't know that was possible. Yeah. Okay, let's go. So those sorts of conversations are what we love. We've started the new XP boardroom this year. There's only like 1 or 2 spaces left on that. And we also do one-to-one consultancy. So people just want an hour of our time or 4 hours of a morning to go higher level with their business, think about the strategy, learn from some of the things that we've learned. And Jack and I love doing that.
Of all the things that you do you have a favorite business? I mean, they're all like.
It depends
babies.
Who's listening.
Yeah, well, exactly. They're all
which team are listening?
I always think that they're like babies. It's like basically telling you, you one baby or one child is more the favorite than the others.
Which is a no-no, a big no-no. No, I think there's pros and cons to each. I love bits of everything, and there are some things I dislike about things. I think fundamentally, I like solving problems and I like a challenge. And
I can tell.
No matter what business it's in, that's the premise of it. Like creating something, being productive with my time, and seeing the productivity come from a shit property that's run down and needs improving to a brand spanking new block of 6 flats that we've taken through the planning process and delivered. Like that transition from crap to great.
Yeah,
that's what gets me out of bed. Yeah.
What's the best bit of advice you've ever received?
Best bit of advice. This one might take a while. What's the best bit of advice I've ever received? There's one of my favorite quotes is Henry Ford. It's the classic one. It's whether you think you can or think you can't, you're right. Exactly. And I think self-belief in an industry like property, where resilience is just crucial, is massive. Like having self-belief that you can do it, that you will get through these issues, you will find a solution. I think that's kind of my mantra, I guess.
No, good one. What's the worst bit of advice you received?
Oh, God. The worst bit of advice I've ever received. Don't give up. Like sometimes it's okay to give up and pivot and do something else. And if you're finding yourself, I think it's Einstein said, if you do the same thing over and over and expect to get a different result, you're mad. I mean, to the words of those effects.
In that accent.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, sometimes you have to cut ties and go a different way. And just banging the drum isn't going to get you there.
No, both very, very true.
I wish I'd prepared for those.
No, they're good. They're
probably
great.
better off the cuff.
Yeah, exactly. I always find everybody kind of looks in this way. It's a good one. Ben, incredibly good to spend more time with you. I would definitely like to have you back again to talk about the growth of XP and all your businesses across the board, because I think they're all incredibly interesting. And the fact that you're able to manage them in the way that you do, and they all seem to, you're quite open as well. Like, there's challenges along the way. It's not like everything goes smoothly all the time.
It's business, yeah.
But you're relentless in that problem-solving kind of approach and pragmatism. If somebody wanted to reach out and find you, what's the best way they can reach you?
Instagram's a good place. LinkedIn is benrichards_property on Instagram. Find us on the Property Experts podcast with Ben and Jack, or ben@xpproperty.co.uk is probably the best one.
And we'll make sure all the links are in the show notes.
Amazing. Thank you very much.
Thank you.